Hello and welcome back to Leftbox 360. I'm Jared, and I'm a really huge fan of the Halo games. And one of the most important parts of those games is a species called the Flood. In my opinion, this species is the true protagonist of the Halo games, and I'll show my supporting evidence in this video. Superficially, when you think of the Flood, you might think of zombies, but as shown in the later entries of the Halo series, they are far greater in intelligence and ability than zombies. Back in the Bungie era, they actually understood how to write horror, which is to not explain what the villain is you're fighting. The Flood spreads by absorbing sentient creatures. When it reaches a critical mass, it develops a centralized intelligence known as the Gravemind. This is pretty much all that's given to us by Bungie in the Halo 3 manual to go off of in understanding the Flood. It basically left them as a blank canvas for us to infer or write our own lore. My own personal lore is, I think they're the good guys. Let me explain in depth. The Flood is a hive mind whose goal is to consume, although we don't quite know for what purpose. But I say the Flood seeks to unify all life into one pure consciousness. The filter theory is a concept in metaphysics where, opposed to popular belief, the mind doesn't create consciousness. Instead, consciousness is persistent, and your brain filters it into your perception. The reason why the body is perverted into such a shape upon your assimilation is because, in reality, you are a perversion of consciousness itself, a reflection of your purest form. Your mind is only a filter to the universal consciousness. Therefore, the Flood is a physical manifestation, the restoration of the universe itself, no longer separated by flesh, become one. In metaphysics, there is the theory of forms, where everything that exists is only a shadow of its purest self, best portrayed by Plato's The Cave, where prisoners are chained in place facing a wall, backlit by a light source. When people walk behind them, all they see is a shadow. If they'd been this way since birth, they would believe that all life is shadow. If one escapes, however, they will reveal the true state of the world. In my perspective, in Halo, humans are only a shadow of their purest form. When the Flood assimilates you, your body twists to show this fact. Oh, the horrors. Oh, what a horror. Just because something is perceived as horrifying doesn't mean it is horrific to be that. For example, if someone is trained to see something as an enemy, then they will perceive that as horrifying. Essentially, horror is in the eye of the beholder. What one person perceives as horrific, another person may see as liberation. In 1917, just as the Bolsheviks took power in Russia, the imperial nations shook in their boots. While the few in the ruling classes perceived this as a horrific danger, the workers across the world could see the liberation of their class, as well as an end to the horrors of capitalism, war, and poverty. When Martin Luther King marched on Washington, a majority of white Americans saw it as a terrifying threat, while those who were excluded and oppressed saw fulfillment, freedom, and justice for all, just as they were promised. The good bits about being a Flood, yeah, the good bits about being a Flood. When you join the Flood, they give you immortality. Some have made the point that immortals have the tendency to go insane, but I would contend that the Flood has had the exact same pursuit of unifying the consciousness of all beings since the beginning of their emergence in 107,445 BCE. Immortality can be seen through the facts of gameplay, where like zombies, the Flood can rise from the dead, but it can also be seen through the things the Gravemind says. I am a timeless chorus. Join your voice with mine and sing victory everlasting. And do I take life or give it? And resignation is my virtue. Like water, I ebb and flow. Defeat is simply the addition of time to a sentence I never deserved, but you imposed. This last quote is my favorite. The Gravemind here is criticizing your choice to be aggressive in order to buy time, because your ego is so large that you refuse to understand them. The Gravemind is resigned to the fact that it is a force of nature that is infinite and immortal. A force that can be temporarily held at bay, but will ultimately overcome resistance. Just like water, it can be dammed or diverted, but it will flow around any obstacle no matter how strong. The Gravemind, just as we are, is a being of many contradictions, and only through deep introspection and dialectics does it come to the understanding of infinite glory. All beings within the hive mind share the same in pain, victory, and joy. Joining the Flood puts an end to bigotry, disease, and the Flood seek peace and an end to all war. I've heard people say when I brought this point up that you lose your individuality. Just look at how the flood charges in, and that's all they do. Their only pursuit is flesh. But this is a very surface level observation, and human-centric at that. When your body is taken by the flood, your mind is connected to the hive. While your body is on autopilot, it becomes, as Hegel would say, sorious consciousness. You are linked inexorably to the universal consciousness. While your body falls, your mind is still linked. And if they mean your individuality, as in your mental faculties, this is also untrue. As seen through the terminals in Halo CE Anniversary, the Grave Mind can still project personal thoughts from each individual's life. And a big flaw in people's logic is assuming that the Grave Mind is one entity, a master to all his slaves, when in reality, the Grave Mind is all beings, unfiltered and unified. The only point that someone could make that is of any vigor is that the flood uses force to change you. Oh, it's a force. It's an unstoppable force. It's the flood, yeah. This is what we are told to believe about how the flood infection works. First, they attack. They then synchronize with the host's nervous system and gain control of their body. But this is pure speculation from what we've seen through the games. We have only seen the flood infect during battle. I contend that the infection of civil entities would be much closer to that of mendicant bias. Mendicant bias was an artificial intelligence created by the Forerunners to repel the flood, and was infected through the logic plague. It has been depicted what the flood does to a non-adversarial person. And when someone is attacking you, is it not your right to attack back? We call that self-defense. In fact, it has been shown in the first Halo game that the flood doesn't attack first. On the level 343 Guilty Spark, they watch you enter, and only attack after they know that you are adversarial. The flood will even de-escalate situations. As seen in Halo 3, do not shoot, but listen. Let me lead you safely to our foe. Only you can halt what he has set in motion. We have in fact seen the Gravemind not infect Master Chief and the Arbiter when they had them alone. In fact, I would personally contend that in Halo 2, when the Gravemind sends the Arbiter and the Chief on a mission, that is a form of infection, or logic plague. It has been shown that the flood in a non-aggressive situation will not harm you, but it will assimilate you through logic and teamwork. 343 Halo Studios, it's a trash company. 343 Halo Studios, it's the trash company. Alright. In the 343 era, time was really spent fleshing out the flood, although I don't really like a lot of what they did with the lore. It becomes far less ambiguous whether or not they are actually underhandedly the good guys. While in the Bungie era, you really had to think deeply. When 343 took the helm, they made it far more obvious. So here's a simple breakdown of the flood under 343. The Precursors were a race of beings that had almost godlike status. Their science had gotten to a point referred to as neurophysics, through which they could manipulate matter at a molecular level. According to stories, they could even shapeshift. They believed in a thing called the mantle of responsibility, which means it's their duty to take care of and nurture all beings they come across, or seed in the universe. The Precursors decided they wanted to leave the mantle of responsibility to humanity. The Forerunners, the race that built the Halo rings, believed that they were worthy of the mantle of responsibility and waged a war against the Precursors, wiping them out, proving they could not hold the mantle. According to legend, some of those Precursors dissolved themselves into dust. Anyway, through some weird shit about dog-like aliens, the dust became the flood, and emerged, taking its vengeance upon the Forerunners. If you want to know in depth, there's a very good Installation 00 video in the description or pinned comment below. But it really isn't vengeance. It's about connection to the consciousness of the universe itself. The flood can even infect artificial intelligence with logic plague. This just supports my point that the flood is just consciousness in a physical form. The flood are upholding the mantle of responsibility by trying to protect and nurture all life in the universe by achieving their purest form. In the end, the flood is a much cooler, more in-depth enemy when you are able to put yourself in their shoes. So even if you disagree with my point, it will make a much more engaging playthrough of Halo if when you do, you think of them as more than zombies. Because the flood is a much more existential threat than a physical threat. The people who wrote the lore obviously had a good understanding of philosophy that should not be passed over by calling them zombies. The flood embodies the Hegelian idea of universal consciousness. And if you want proof that Bungie understood this, look no further than the Halo 3 Beastrum. Their society, if it may be called that, most closely resembles a utopian socialist ideal, as there is no wealth, no poverty, no want, no crime, and no disease. Every individual works for the advancement of the flood as a whole, and they must add the human perspective, where they say, it is unfortunate that their overriding goal is to butcher and consume every other life form in the galaxy. In order for people to think of them as horrifying, they had to put butcher and consume in brackets, as if it was edited by a third party. The Beastrum also proves my point about the Gravemind. They form around sentient life forms, specifically those that are self-aware and capable of introspection. And group reactions to situational changes at a strategic level are instantaneous or near instantaneous, with no perceptible time lag attributable to distance. It's been theorized that post-feral stage flood have some form of telepathy. This, in my opinion, is due to them being the embodiment of consciousness itself. Humans are already the universal consciousness. All the flood does is remove the barriers between us. It's very important for me to reiterate that the flood is not a master. Everyone who joins is an equal partner. The Gravemind is shorthand, a name given by humans for a timeless chorus of everyone who has united with it. I urge all watching to think critically about the media you consume and really engage with it. You never know what you might find. Thanks for watching Leftbox 360. This was a really fun video to make, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please leave a like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment down below if you disagree with me, or you agree with me, or you want to add something. Yeah, hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.